talking about Ruth still, in the book of Ruth, and we're in about the middle of it. But as I started looking back over the story the other day, trying to kind of get back into the story myself, it brought to my attention that I had not even mentioned the faith of Ruth. And it's pretty prominent in here. And so I want to address that this morning. When we first meet her, her faith is more in Naomi, I think, than it is in Naomi's God. But she's been watching from the sidelines now for nearly 10 years, where our story begins. And so she's getting pretty well to where she can understand about this. Naomi has a strong faith in Jehovah God, who is really different from the gods of the Moabite people. And it's not long until Ruth learns to trust God, that Naomi, the God that Naomi shows her. Naomi has had a very strong impact on both Ruth and Orpah, her daughters-in-law. She's a very strong individual, and it's made a difference for them. Naomi's husband Elimelech dies pretty quickly, not long after they moved to Moab, evidently. And her two sons married after that, and within 10 years they're gone. So she is left alone, Naomi is, and the daughters-in-law, with no one to support them. And that culture in that day, if the woman didn't have a husband or a son, she was in trouble. She wouldn't have been able to pay for food, or especially if she was old enough that she couldn't work, she was destitute. Naomi knows, she decides that she's going to go back, and go back to Bethlehem, where she came from. She probably has family there. She definitely has friends there. And she's going to go back. But at the same time, she's kind of torn, because she knows her two Moabite daughter-in-laws would not be welcome there, most likely. And so she tries to persuade them to stay. She encourages them to return to their mother's houses in hopes of finding husbands to support them. And Orpah does go back, but Ruth, she's a strong-willed child, some hard-headed woman, maybe. Ruth knows what she has, and she is not willing to give it up. It says Ruth has made up her mind to go with Naomi. Literally, the words there mean she has made herself strong to go. In other words, she's got her mindset. If you don't let me walk beside you, I'm going to follow you. It's kind of I'm going to go. So Naomi stops trying to persuade her. And Ruth doesn't go and tell her family goodbye. She just don't want to lose touch with Naomi. She's afraid if she lets her out of her sight that she will disappear, and she doesn't want to lose her. She sees the value of Naomi's faith and how it affects their relationship. It's a pearl of great price for her, and she's not willing to let it go. And in fact, she gives all that she possesses to get it. In the Amplified Bible, every time the word faith is mentioned, they give you 4 synonyms for the word faith. The primary one is to trust in, or to rely on, to adhere to, stick to, or to cling to. And in chapter 1, verse 14 of Ruth, you remember that it says that Ruth clung to Naomi. She's got a hold of her and she won't turn loose. She can't bear the thought of being separated. In Hebrews 11, verse 1, we have the classic definition of the word faith. It's the substance of things hoped for, the evidence of things not seen. It's a little bit difficult to process that definition. If you kind of think about it, substance is the touchy-feely stuff, right? Substance. But what you hope for is not real, yes. So you can't touch what you hope for. So it's not touchy-feely, okay? So it's the touchy-feely stuff that's not touchy-feely. Our definition becomes the touchy-feely evidence of what's not touchy-feely yet. Not really. We can't see it. You understand? Yeah, that's what I thought. It's not very clear, is it? If you think about it, you can almost understand it and then it evaporates, right? That's the way it does for me. You ever feel like that? Don't feel like you're alone. But when you see faith, it's easier to recognize it. And Ruth has been watching Naomi, and she sees faith. I don't know why Elimelech went to Moab. I mean, it was a famine at home, so yeah, they had to leave. But why did he pick Moab, and why did they stay 10 years? And all these questions come to your mind. But she's living in a situation where it would require a lot of faith to be where you don't want to be, where you don't have any friends, and you don't have anything in common with the people who live there as far as your religious life is concerned. But when you see faith, as Ruth has seen it, you recognize it. That's why James, I think, says that faith without works is dead. It's useless. Our faith is what God uses to draw people to himself. That's why Ruth is ready to go wherever Naomi is going. Doesn't make any difference where, just count me in, I'm going. She may not have known about the word faith, but she has a handle on the concept. To cling to or claw or to hang on and refuse to let go. And we can see in her actions that she understands that. It says she made herself strong to go, and Naomi sees that it's useless to try to persuade her to go back. We've all experienced that. You're trying to persuade somebody to do something, and they can't hear you. You just don't waste your breath talking about it. I'm not going, or I am going, or I'm, whatever their decision is. Now, Naomi evidently, she's a pretty gutsy lady. She is about to take off. She's made up her mind she's going back to Bethlehem. And it says that they're living on the plains of Moab. I'm not sure exactly where that is. It could be just across the Jordan River a little ways, maybe 30 or 40 miles. It may be 70, 80 miles. It could be a good ways. She's fixing to go back to Bethlehem, which is 40 to 80 miles hike through some wide open, desolate country. She's going to go by herself. Seems to be. I don't know if she's traveling with a caravan. They didn't have Greyhound service in those days, so I know she's not riding a bus, but she's going. 70, 80, or 40 to 80 miles is like from here to Crossville, or maybe nearly to Knoxville. Only not on our modern roads, and certainly not our modern cities with convenience stores and paved sidewalks. More like Hanks Holler Road. Are you familiar with that? It's just like, well, it is a graded road, okay, or it was. still is on the upper part of it. But it's just, in places, it's just two little ruts going down through the gravel. And I'm going to try next week, or next time I speak, I'm going to try to have pictures of some of the roads that were taken back around the turn of the century of that particular area. And you'll see, it goes off out through, and you can see it going up the hill, and you would think it's a cow trail. And if there was cows traveling there, they'd be on there too with the people. I mean, it's just, there's nothing. It's like up in the mountains. It is mountains over there. But it's without trees, without creeks. I'll let you Tennessee fellas figure that out. Y'all figure that. No trees, I know, and when I was in North Carolina, everybody wants to know where you come from, what's it like, and then you tell them, well, it's flat like a table. Okay. No mountains. You don't see it. I mean, if you get to the right place, you can see mountains way, and they're purple, in the distance. But you can't see them. They don't have mountains. If there's somebody coming in a dirt road, you can see their dust cloud behind their car for maybe 5 miles. You can tell they're coming, And it's wilderness. There's bears, there's lions, what we call mountain lions. There's coyotes or jackals. It's a little bigger than our coyotes, but it's a wild dog. Not to mention the robbers that live along, the story Jesus told about the Good Samaritan. He was on the road from Jerusalem to Jericho, which is the very road that Ruth and Naomi would be traveling. And they fell among thieves. And occasionally there would be a caravan of traders come. But you know what? If you're a woman, that's not a very safe thing. They'd be willing to pick up a woman or two, and they could sell at their destinations for slaves. What would you do? How would you get away from them? How would you can't get off the road. In some places it's downhill like that, or straight uphill on the other side. There's no place to go. So anyway, even when Ruth goes with her, it's not what you would call safe travel. So she's got her mind. She knows how to deal with strong-willed Ruth. She's got her strong will of her own. And the folks in Bethlehem were surprised to see her just walk back into town 10 years after she left. And I understand we're told that the whole town was in a stir, excited because of them. And I think they were glad to see Naomi. She's the kind of person we all enjoy being around, being with. She's a very caring and loving person, and they all enjoyed it. But I also think that some of them were excited because they realized what she's just done, where she came from, and where she had to go to get to Bethlehem. Most of them wouldn't have tackled. I suppose that maybe she went with the group. It just doesn't mention it. In verse 19, it reads, now the two of them went until they came to Bethlehem. The way that statement is, it sounds like they went by themselves to me. But you could, if you went on a bus trip or a road from here with a bunch of people from here to the mountains, and you'd say, when you were telling about it, and you would say, I went to the mountains this weekend. You wouldn't say, I went with 10 other people to the mountains, or I went with a busload of people to the mountains. You could say, and legitimately say, I went to the mountains. And so it may not be that she traveled alone, but she is a gutsy lady, nonetheless, for just making the trip. Now remember now, Naomi is struggling at this point. When she gets to Bethlehem and everybody's excited to see her and they can't believe it's Naomi, and she says, don't even call me Naomi, which means pleasant. Don't call me that. Call me Mara, which means bitter. She's upset. She says, the Almighty has afflicted me. You ever felt afflicted? Affliction, the dictionary says, implies pain, suffering, distress. It's imposed by illness or loss or misfortune. It means to strike down. And we often feel struck down, do we not? You ever hear somebody say, you probably said yourself, I just can't seem to get ahead. Just every time I think I'm almost there, something happens and knocks me down again. That's afflicted. Naomi says, she went out full, and the Lord brought me back home again empty. She's been gone now for 10 years or more, and she had nothing to show for it. In fact, what she had when she left, she no longer has. She didn't stop to think who was with her. She's fixing to learn in the rest of the story what a treasure she had with Ruth. You ever been there? I know some have been afflicted. Perhaps all of us have who've lived a few years. The only reason we don't give up like those who have no hope is that we trust the one who is able to bring us through and bring us through the trial. That trust is the faith that we're talking about. Like Naomi said, the Almighty has afflicted me. He allows us to be tested. In fact, you can even say sometimes He brings us to the test. Our emotions, like our minds, never return to the same shape once they're stretched. That's how we grow. They don't return to the previous shape. And we always grow, it seems, in stressful times. Our reaction should be one of thankfulness. Thankful that our Father thinks we're able to come through the test. Grateful that He gives us strength to hang on. It should be obvious to us that our strength comes from the Lord. Most of these tests stretch us near the breaking point, so that when we come through the test, we are not fooled into thinking that we did it ourselves. Our Father is all about receiving glory from His creation. And when we grow in His garden, under His care, being tended by His skillful hands and thoughtful mind, if you can allow the analogy, we bring glory to Him when He uses us, like He did Naomi, to draw the Ruths to Himself. There are Ruths around us. I thought while I was writing this down earlier in the week about Wanda Leonard and her two granddaughters that come with her meeting. I mean, I'm sure she knows it, but their eyes were on Grandma, and they're paying close attention. And Matt, you got kids, and they're watching. They're watching close what you do. In fact, all of us in here are living in front of someone, some family member or friend, who God wants to bring to Himself. So pay attention to what you do, how you live. You're affecting some people. You got kids, they're watching. Naomi and Ruth are just one story in tens of thousands, maybe millions of other stories that our Father is using to compose His love story with people. You and I are in this story, and at some point we are main characters. I always lose my place. At some place we're main characters, and we have the ball in our hand, and it's time for us to pass the ball to the next generation. We might say to the next flower in the garden. And you think, oh, how do I do that? You ask. Well, I'm glad you asked. You trust Him. That's how you do it. That's how you pass it on. You trust your Father. You let people that are close to you see that you trust Him and not yourself. You let them hear you say that you trust Him. And you let them watch you live it every day. Proverbs 3, verse 5 and 6. Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and lean not on your own understanding. In all your ways, acknowledge Him, and He will direct your paths. If you're living that scripture, the people around you can see. And God will draw them like He did Ruth to Himself. He uses your faith and your trust to reach out to people because they see how you live and they see how you handle the things that life throws at you. People of faith have been living by that scripture for around 3,000 years, at least since the time Proverbs was accumulated, put together. And it's their motto. Lean not on your own understanding. Remember the question that I told you last time I spoke to you. When you're reading the scriptures, have the question in the back of your mind, what is God like? Or who is God like? That's what He's communicating through our Bibles. And God is in Ruth's story. But you know what? This is not just Ruth's story. It's my story and your story. It's about a stranger, He calls her, who just happens to walk into the field of the one person in Bethlehem who was prepared to help her. You see, Boaz, who is actually a picture of God our Father in this story. Boaz, whose own mother was a foreigner, an outcast, was exactly prepared to identify with Ruth. I want to ask you, who is it in your life that our Father uses to pull at your heartstrings, to call your name, like Boaz did Ruth? How does He speak to you? Who does He speak to you through? Inviting you not to be His servant girl, not to be His hired hand, but to be His bride. Who is it that calls you to be God's bride? That's the kind of relationship He wants with you. He calls to us. It's not make-believe. It's very real. I pray often for you to be able to have ears that can hear Him calling your name. You can trust Him. He loves you. And if you can sense that He is drawing you to Himself, I ask you to kill the pride that prevents you from responding to His call. We all find out too late how much it will cost to walk by our own wisdom. As soon as you realize the truth of that statement, it's time to bail out of that lifestyle and acknowledge Him. Follow His lead and trust Him to direct your paths.